As far as AI is concerned, I fear that the most important prerequisite for successful AI is actually highly developed NI, that is, natural intelligence. Thank goodness the letters for NI are the same in English as they are in German, even in French. Intelligence naturelle, if my French still serves me. Why is NI so important? AI doesn't think, nor does it write clever programs. It also doesn't come up with new business ideas, not today. I like the comparison made by an AI researcher who describes the current state as the kindergarten phase of AI. But after introducing some new fundamentals, tools like dynamic arrays, I would like to show how you can get even more out of Excel with AI.
Let's get to the practical side. Some AI evangelists speak of the so-called race, the race in which uncontrolled AI agents will take over the global economy and world domination in 2030.
If that's the case, then we urgently need to make use of the time while our average brains still have control, with the help of our current run-of-the-mill AI assistants. However, my first attempt with a premium PDF subscription powered by AI was over rather quickly. The built-in AI had a nervous breakdown and has only been painting pictures of flowers ever since. Joking aside, the task was simply too complicated and the tools were too expensive and too unstable. But another example of the run-of-the-mill approach fits much better anyway. For several years now, I've been wondering how it's so easy to export to PDF, but going the other way goes so terribly wrong. Especially when it comes to, say, dozens upon dozens of more or less tabular PDF statements. Let's call them bad tables. In the following greenfield approach, I simply wanted to find out what is possible today, from the perspective of the average user, using AI, perhaps even with open source or free software, or even just with the built-in tools of Office 365, and how much natural intelligence is still needed to achieve a reasonable result. Let's start with a typical PDF sheet from a fictional bank. Of course, for the PDF analysis, I actually used real bank statements from a reputable bank and no, not any material from my real-life clients. The bank has even kindly drawn lines, so you might think this could work. Let's zoom in on the essentials. Here in the green area, there are 3 columns and 4 to 6 rows of data, without any column headers. Let's see what Power Query makes of this. The process is called ETL, or extract, transform, and load. And the Power Query Data Navigator is responsible for the extraction. Let's zoom in on the result here, inside a red frame. Now the punchline is already ruined. Well, 5 columns that doesn't bother the hardened table importer at all, but 5 data rows, where the titles are sometimes tacked on at the front, that's no big deal either. If we know how the bank usually labels the columns, we can sort that out as well, with VBA and so on. But what really pushes things over the edge is that some text sections, in a completely chaotic way and without following any stable pattern, spill over into the next line, which then leads to total chaos and massively impairs the data quality. Right, next, let's see what ChatGPT has to say about it from a layperson's perspective, and we get the suggestion to do it with Python. Mind you, not Python in Excel, but a very nice Python source code. But that still doesn't produce a usable table either. The next AI we asked just shrugged its shoulders and suggested trying it by hand. If this sounds familiar to you, and you've spent years reshaping this kind of data mess with all sorts of little programming tricks, then you're in for a treat. Thanks to AI, things are really moving forward now. In fact, even in Office, and if not in the somewhat outdated Power Query, then with Word. Because now you can actually insert PDFs quite neatly into a Word document. And indeed, the table is clean, selectable, and can be copied into Excel. The import clearly happens with AI support. So, it's taken a closer look at the table and understood the context of data, rows, and columns. It probably wasn't the pushy Copilot, otherwise it would have boasted about it. It was more likely a diligent little agent working in the background. Copilot's idea for this was to implement it using VBA. Only, Copilot didn't want to switch from the Word object to the Excel object. There still seems to be a barrier there. For anyone now suggesting Office scripts and Power Automate, I put that question very politely to ChatGPT and got a great result as well. The simple, free AI confirmed my suspicion with a neat function table. There's no way around using VBA. The AI itself even provided me, unprompted, with 80% of the VBA source code. However, I only used that as inspiration and instead simply recorded my clicks in Word and Excel with the macro recorder, then tidied up the source code myself to make it even clearer. That does require a bit of research in the Microsoft documentation, but at least you know the macro does exactly what you want it to. In the deep dive, I'll then explain each step here in the VBA script. I think the whole thing is a very good example of my minimal VBA approach. Admittedly, it's already more than 10 lines, but thanks to the hidden involvement of AI, the result is a real quantum leap.